welcoming everyone to the new coach session. Our goal today is just to talk about what you ought to be thinking about as we start to move into what will be the FRC build season. So there's information in this session around that, as well as some reminders from our first session around team structure and ways to manage a team as you go through. We have two veteran coaches with us today. Elise Spontarelli is in year 2, and Mark Saylor. Mark, I don't know how long you've been doing this, like a super long time.
This is year 9.
Yeah, that might as like in dog years, right? Like it's like
yeah.
might as well be 60 years. And then so they're here to help us help you, because at the end of the day, coaches who are doing this work out in the field are the ones who have the most experience. And then we also have with us our two program coordinators, Matt and Bonnie. And
Hi.
So there's Matt and Bonnie. And I don't know if I introduced myself. I'm Shelly. I'm the Vice President of FIRST Chesapeake. And so we're excited to get going. We're going to move through these slides. We'll probably do some back and forth and ultimately have Mark and Elise just pop in and join in as needed. This is informal, so if you have a question, by all means, stop us and ask. Don't feel like we're married to the slide deck. We're not. And yeah, we want this to be as meaningful as possible for you. Thanks. All right. So Bonnie, you start, because you made the slide deck.
So the first thing we wanted to do is put in just a reminder to make sure your dashboard is updated, that the information that is in your dashboard is correct. So the email address that is in there needs to be one that you're checking regularly, because that's how we most often contact you, along with your phone number, because if we can't reach you by email, we'll call you. And make sure that you are inviting your team members and that those students are getting those consent and release forms signed. If you start that process now, then hopefully by season, everything will be up to date.
And it's worth mentioning for those that are new to our ecosystem that a lot of people believe that there's some sort of API that exists between FIRST headquarters databases and FIRST Chesapeake databases. And that is not the case. We do manual downloads from FIRST dashboard, and we take that information and put it into our spreadsheets in order to manage information. So if you have incorrect information in your dashboard, we will have incorrect information for you. And so that's why the importance of keeping that dashboard up to date is really important. If you are newer, but have done FIRST before, and you are using any of the QR codes or express links in the dashboard in order to bring team members on or sign consent and release forms, if you are having difficulty with that, which some people have, the workaround is to use the legacy system, which is also available in your dashboard. So not using the express links and the QR codes, but rather asking your parents to go in and sign the consent and release for their student and then request to be members of your team. So there are workarounds when the dashboard is not behaving in a way that is easy. If you need help with that, you can reach out to any of us and we can help you navigate that.
The question real quick.
Yeah.
If I'm making like a team, does it have to be like, can I change the name? Because I was thinking I'll just make the team tonight, like on y'all's website dashboard thing.
Mm-hmm.
But can I change the name afterward because I haven't chosen a team name yet?
Yeah, you can change the name of your team.
It's all right, cool.
That's just important. Yeah, absolutely. What won't change is the team number. So whatever team number is assigned to you, that sticks with you for forever. But the team name can change. I will say, and I'll let Mark and even Elise speak to this, is that as you are thinking about your team, the thing that helps any team, regardless of program, sort of have long-term success is to have a name, brand, motto, uniform, just like a sporting team has, in order to bring cohesion to the team, but also to be able to go out into your community and say, like, we're a thing. You want to support us in our process. So, and become recognizable, know who we are. And so you can utilize your kids to help you with that. You can use your school or community to help you with that. But do think about that as you guys are thinking about if you plan to change it or update it. Oh, wow. Team management. So, team management's important. In FRC, how you structure your team is really critical, I would argue, for the success of your team, but it's also going to be based on how many kids are on your team and how many mentors you have. And so these are just some ideas around how to structure your weekly meetings. Even though this is technically not your build season because you have not seen the game yet, this is a time where you can start putting these aspects of your team in place. So making sure your kids understand if there's going to be a hierarchy, if there's going to be student captains or leaders or subgroups, if there's going to be certain responsibilities mentors handle versus the student leadership body handling it. Those types of things are important to establish ahead of the launch of the game in January. And so starting that process now so that you know how you want to govern and structure your meeting time is super important. And these are just some ideas. Management software. So again, this is not the end all be all. These are just some ideas. These are things that some coaches use. Slack, Google Drive, Trello is one. I know Monday.com is used quite a bit. Mark and Elise, would you guys do like just a brief overview of how you structure your teams? And tell us how many kids and mentors you have too. I think that's important.
Oh, yeah. Well, like my team, it kind of fluctuates, but typically we have in the past several years averaging 70 to 75 on the team. Regular participations, 50 to 50, 60 maybe in there. We are structured more like a business where we have a board of directors, which is made up of school officials, but mostly the mentor cadre in terms of having that stability from one year to the next. And then we have a CEO, our CCOO, which is our Chief Community Outreach Officer, and our CTO, Chief Technical Officer. This year we added a couple of director roles to try to work on some inclusion, which is one of our struggles. We've had some attrition with some of our subgroups within the setup. Mentor wise. Yeah. So when I first started, we did elections. We no longer do elections. So we've taken the whole popularity contest out of the process, and kids have to interview. They have to apply. They go through the interview process just like they would for a business. And then the selection is from there. And we've gotten pretty good results from that the last several years, pretty much since COVID. Mentor number wise, we do not have the right ratio for a team of 70. So in most cases, like if we have like a Friday meeting where we have 50, we might have 5 mentors there, maybe less. And so we're trying to get parents involved. And so a lot of my upperclassmen have to take on some of those training roles as well. So that makes it a little bit more of a challenge. So I'm always looking for more ways to incorporate more mentors in there. I know I've talked and seen some teams where they have that 3-to-1 ratio, which is a big goal we're trying to get to. But being a regional school, it's a little bit harder to kind of do that. All our kids get bussed in from 14 different school divisions in there. So
thanks, Mark. Elise. Yeah. So Elise is in her second year of the journey, and so
much different.
What's that?
Said, and it's much different. Yeah. So I hear you on the 10 kids. We have 15 students on the team, and we did cap it at that. As a young team, that's where we want to be. We had 14 last year. We have 15 this year, and We have most of the sub teams that Shelly sort of described on the slide. One thing that we did not have last year, especially for first year teams, I don't want you to feel like you have to start with like everything. We really didn't have student leadership roles last year because we didn't know who the student leaders were going to be. And so we're gradually adding those in our second year. And now we have some returning seniors who are really strong. And we have sort of split, basically as a small team, everyone has what we'll call like a robot job and then also a business job. So we have, I can share the team org chart if that's helpful. But everyone plays a part that touches the robot and everyone has something to do that does not touch the robot, which is like either budgeting or project management or outreach or that sort of thing. And then we have, really actually we're strong on mentors. We have, I think, 12 mentors for 15 students. They are not there every day. So the mentor commitment is 3 days a week and the student commitment is 5 days a week. So we're sort of, rotating mentors. What else would be helpful? Is there anything I left out there?
I don't think so. That's
all right. Would the org chart be helpful? I'm happy to paste that in the chat.
Yeah,
please do. I think it's also worth noting, so the two coaches on the call tonight, Elise, you're a community team, correct?
Yes, that's true. So we have kids from maybe like 9 different schools or something.
And then Mark's team, as he mentioned, he's with a governor's school.
It's kind of like a public school, but also a community team all rolled into one. So
exactly. And so for those of you on the call that are doing a community team, you will have some flexibility in what you're doing that a school-based team would not have. Those of you who are situated with a school, you're going to have to work within the bounds of whatever your school district or your school administration says you need to be doing. And so keep that in mind too. The beauty of FIRST programs is that you can take what we share today and you can create what works for your circumstances, your students, your community, your situation. And so this is really meant to be high level ideas and discussion, but ultimately you will be creating something that works for where you are in the journey. Any questions before we go on to the next slide? There are a lot of slides, so. Awesome. You wanna take that one, Bonnie?
So this is just where you need to define what role you want to take as a mentor. With FRC, you have a lot more flexibility than with the other FIRST programs. So you need to decide, are you going to be student-led? So are the students going to be doing all of the work? Are you going to have mentors leading the program, but still having the students do the work? Or are you going to have the mentors take on the largest role and have the students more like apprentice type situation where they would be kind of working alongside the mentors and the mentors are doing the majority of the work? If you want to know more about that, I did put the link in there, but you really just need to figure out what's going to work for your particular program and what you are looking for out of it.
And I would just add too that as you are thinking through what this looks like for you, as a new coach in a new program doing something brand new, it would not be inappropriate to be like, I think we're going to be mentor led with students like in the mix with me because we're all learning, right? As opposed to being like, well, I'm just going to pass it off to kids and like fingers crossed and hope for the best. Like don't be afraid to take on a more involved leadership role because it is something that is embraced by the FIRST community in the FRC program. If you are coming from FLL where it's like, don't even think about sneezing on the robot, much less touch it, right? To FTC, which is like, hands off, my friends, your guide on the side. To FRC, you're going to see every type of mentor relationship when you go to competition. There are coaches that are the drive coach for the drive team on the field. There are coaches that are like sitting in the area where like parents hang out and they're just letting their team do their thing. And there's everything in between. So don't be afraid to create what works, again, for your circumstance, in your comfort level and that of your students. Mark,
and I would also put a little note in there too, is don't feel like once you set yourself up for one area that you're stuck. So I'm going to tell you, in my 9 years, we fluctuated between all three of those. Maybe not all the whole team, but maybe aspects of the team where we needed to have a little bit more mentor control over an area just because of some weaknesses that we had. And so we kind of have fluctuated back and forth between those. And I kind of rely on my mentors big time, because I'm just going to tell you right now, I cannot build an FRC robot. So if I didn't have my mentor crew in there, we definitely would not be at a point of having a robot on the field. So
that's a really good point. Elise, did you have anything you want to add as a newer coach?
No, I would echo what Mark said, which is you can shift as you go. And honestly, our first year, we had some idea of what we thought that relationship would look like, but you're just gonna figure it out. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard to say, like, well, here's how I'm going to organize something that you've never done before. So if you don't know which type of team you're going to be yet, but you have, adults who are willing to mentor and students who want to learn, just kind of get in there and maybe have this in your mind. And we took binders worth of notes our first year about what we wanted to do next year, and then feedback from students about how they wanted it to be structured. So it's definitely okay if you haven't selected one of those and are really dialed in on it during your first season.
And I do that every year, binders of notes. So
yeah.
Well, and that's also a really good point, because I think mindset and setting the expectation for your kids when they go to a competition is important too. And so I think as a new team, setting the expectation that we're in this to have fun, we're in this to learn, we're in this to figure some stuff out this year, and whatever we figure out, that's a win. And that's a win for us, and really highlighting that type of growth as the achievement, rather than, did we get an award? Did we get some sort of recognition? I think establishing that from the outset is really important, because newer teams who are just learning the ropes don't always get awards. And that's okay, because we're not in it for just getting awards. It's all the other stuff that's super exciting too. So
one of the things I said to our students and our mentors and everyone last year was that we can't skip our rookie season. And you wouldn't want to, but you're a first year team, and there's no shortcut. You just have to be a first year team. And that has some really great benefits, because you just are so naive going into it, and that's kind of fun and scary. But also you just have to learn. You got to go through it and figure it out. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Shell. Any questions about that? Okay, moving on. So, finances. It's a real thing. Running an FRC team is expensive. So, not going to pretend like it's not, because it is. You all have likely gone through the registration process in some format, so you know that to register a team is $6,300, and that does not count any of the other costs associated with traveling to an event, staying in a hotel overnight, buying any sort of additional parts, getting tools, right? All these other pieces and parts that go into it. And as a result, it is important for the success of a team to be thinking about the financial organization of your team. So much like a football team or a sporting team has a booster that helps them and manages for them, you all really need to be thinking about, how are we going to manage ourselves financially in a governance way, as well as just managing the monies that are coming in and out as we move forward. So you can run like a nonprofit organization. The governance around that would be determining who is in charge of that budget and who's going to be your check and balance on that budget, setting budgetary limits, having an advisory council, much like what Mark was talking about, different things to ensure that there are checks and balances, and that you as the coach are not the only person intercepting funds and expending funds, right? Like, you want to make sure that there's some other governance in there in order to protect yourselves. Also, thinking about how the accounting is going to go. If this is all running through your school, that's a thing, right? You can totally do that, but do remember that you're going to need to know very much what the rules and regs of your school's policies are. What's it take to get a check cut? Is there a credit card that we get to use because we're a sporting team? Is there, if I'm not good friends with the person working the front desk who manages that stuff, is that going to impact me somehow? Because many of our speaking to school-based teams, many of our school-based teams run into difficulties because the system at FIRST is set up for, like, just run a credit card and pay for it. And not that you can't use POs and checks, you can, but the system is really set up for the ease of transaction to be through a card. And with that in mind, having to go to a school board and get approvals and do all the things that it requires can be challenging. So thinking about how that's going to be run, how are you managing reimbursements in the event those are needed, any sort of documentation, and ultimately just keeping track of all of this material is really, really important. Again, part of this is protecting yourselves and the team itself, but also to ensure that, let's say that you receive a grant, but you're a community team and you're not a nonprofit, you need a way to intercept those funds. And so there are ways to do it. We have a slide on don't we have the Hat Club stuff on the slide? Yeah. So you can use something like the Hat Club, which allows you to create an account for your team, and you can use it much like you would an account that you as a nonprofit would have set up. If you're going to partner with a nonprofit, because we see people do that too, you want to make sure that there's some sort of memo of understanding in place, so that if your team's receiving grant funds, that if you're working with a nonprofit as a pass-through, you need to be thinking about, are they taking a fee for letting that money come through their organization to get to us? Or is the money being somehow encumbered or split in some way because we're utilizing them as our nonprofit? And so there are just different things to think about, whether someone's acting as a fiduciary versus a pass-through. And so all of this requires some thought around how you want to manage it. I would start with determining, if you're a school team, what the school requires of you, right? So if your school requires a certain set of steps, then you're going to need to follow those. But if you are a community-based team or a school-based team that has its own set of parameters, like a charter school or something like what Mark's involved in, then maybe Hat Club is a way forward for you. All this to say, it is definitely a thing, because I would argue that the average team all in is spending somewhere between 10 and 20,000 a year in order to manage. You think that's too high? Mark, you think that's too high?
I'm just going to let you know, with all of our trips last year, it was about 112.
Okay. We're not going to scare everybody.
Okay.
So if you're only going, freaking me out.
If you're only, if you're only going to go to your
qualifiers.
then it is probably, with the robot construction and all your entry fees and that kind of stuff, 20 to 30, you're probably
30,
okay. Yeah.
Our budget for last year was 30, and this year it's something similar, and we're going to make it.
And then for teams like Mark, so Mark's team went to district championship and then ultimately went to Worlds. So his team went to 4 events last year, I would argue 3 of them were travel. 5 events last year.
We went to IRI in July as well.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
They were crazy. I'm like, okay.
Big time. And so that's a lot of travel. That's out of state travel.
Yeah.
And so that budget is a little bit higher. So once
it is crazy. Yeah.
But in thinking about a future, right? So I'm in my son's team. He's on Team 401, which is over here in Southwest Virginia. And their budget is around 60 to 70,000 a year. Sometimes a little higher if they need to like replace stuff and get some additional parts. They have a budget to always be planning for additional travel if they make it to districts, if they make it to worlds, but they don't always use it because, they don't know what's going to happen. And they're a team much like Mark's in that they have around 60 kids. And so they're a larger team. They've got 20 years doing this thing. And so they have the support of a school district. They have support of local sponsors, but it's taken years to get to that place. And so in the beginning, for those of you here who are in the beginning, you need money to register, build a robot, go to competitions. That's what you need right now.
I'm happy to break down our budget a little bit more if that helps too.
Yeah, please do.
So like for travel, we're in the middle of Virginia, which means we have to travel to both events. There's no home event. And so but a smaller team. So our travel budget is $5,000 for the season. If we go to districts, then maybe it will be more than that. And then our robot, and really for the first season, the only budget that we gave the students responsibility of was the actual robot, if that makes sense. So there's a larger budget that includes travel and late fees and administration, and we didn't bother students with that, at least not yet. So we gave them this is how much you can spend on the robot, anything that's going to be physically on the robot. And that was the budget that students were in charge of. And that was something, they went over budget, but it was something in the 10,000 range on the robot itself. And then there's, tools that we needed and things like that add up to the rest of it. And we do pay our head coach as well. And I know some teams don't, or that budget comes out of the school budget and not the team budget. And there's all kinds of ways that works. But
so just a caveat, my first year, 2018, is a full-time thing. We built 2 robots for $8,000.
There you go.
Which is now you can't do that. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mel. So somehow I've changed the screen so it looks just Mark. Where did the slides go? Bonnie, what did I do?
I don't know. I see him.
You see him?
Yeah.
Oh, there. I see him now. Okay, I got it. I just, because I think if we accidentally click somewhere else, then in the video, it's going to be no slides. It's just Mark's beautiful face. So I want to make sure the slides are in there. All right. So if you haven't marked your calendar yet, friends, FRC Kickoff is generally the first weekend in January. However, this weekend, because the first weekend lands too close to the first of the year, it's going to be pushed off to January 10th.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So January 10th is Kickoff. In your dashboard, you have the option to have your kit of parts sent to you physically that you pay shipping for, or you can go to one of the, I will put it in quotes, local Kickoff events that are being run that you can go and pick up your kit of parts. So an example, over here in Southwest Virginia, we are having an in-person event at the Science Museum in Roanoke where we will have several teams come and pick up their kit of parts. There is an in-person one happening in Richmond.
I think, it's just pick up. Right. I think you just pick up your stuff at VCU. Yeah. So that's an important thing to mention. Some of the kit of part pickups on Kickoff Day are literal pickups. Like you show up, you get your kit, you sign to say that you got it, and then you leave. So that's one version. There are other Kickoff events where it's an event where there might be some mentor professional development. There might be watching the
midday launch video together. So it just depends on where you're doing it. Oh, happy birthday, Shalane. So once kickoff happens on January 10th, then we've got a 6-week roadmap to get you from kickoff, when you learn what the game is and how to score points on a field, to the point at which you need to start showing up to an event with said robot to do a thing. And so this is a high level, very top level experience in terms of like what you could do during those weeks. I will let Mark and Elise talk about what they did. And again, you can use this and follow it, or you can pick something based on what someone else shares. This is just meant to be a guide. So week 1 is kickoff and working through strategy. So on kickoff day, there's an animation and a launch video, and then the game manual, the competition manual is released. That information is all critical for how your robot is going to function out on a field. And so you and your team need to watch the video, read the manual, understand what's in the manual, and start thinking about what your strategy is going to be to earn points when you get out on that field. Now, depending upon what kit of parts you get and where you are in your process, will also kind of determine your strategy. So if you're in the beginning of your journey and you're getting one of the KitBots that are now available through FIRST, then you're going to likely make a chassis that can do certain things, and then you can iterate beyond that. And the directions for getting you started are released with that KitBot after January 10th or on January 10th. And so picking the kind of strategy that you want to use is very important. I would argue, as a beginning coach, utilizing the KitBot is a good idea. I will let Elise, did you guys use a KitBot last year?
No, we're crazy.
Okay, so crazy. We'll let her share her crazy experience.
We didn't. So we're based in a makerspace, and so machining parts and everything from scratch is like our superpower. That's the thing we can do. We have all the CNC tools. We have the, full machine shop and the full welding shop and the full plasma cutter and the CNC routers and the laser cutters. Like that's what we have. And so we built everything. And that was a lot of fun. But also our robot didn't move with all of its parts until maybe the day before the first competition. Like, it was a mess. And by the last by the end of our second competition, it did what we wanted it to do, and it was great. And we still had a great season. So yeah, I mean, that's what we did. It's a crazy approach, but it's really like part of our team's identity is what we sort of discovered during the build process. And I think that's really important, is to figure out who you are as a team. And so they bonded over, the way our robot was made, and it didn't look like other robots. And we didn't use the KitBot, but definitely there's nothing wrong with using the KitBot. It's a good idea.
Awesome.
We brought back KitBot for the first time last year and used that for our rookies. The thing is, we didn't really have enough mentors to help guide them, so they didn't get their robot built until May. So May, it was programmed and that kind of stuff. So we're now using that as a tool, and we're going to continue that process this year, I think. I would also say, if you've got if you're a rookie team and you've got some really ambitious kids that have some background in things, you might also look at the EveryBot option once they release that after the kickoff as well, because it gets some other ideas about what you can add to your robot.
Great advice. Awesome. So utilize the KitBot if you want easier starting place, and also if you don't have access to things like machining and that sort of thing. But do what works for you. And to Elise's point, really focusing on determining who you are as a team and working towards having that team cohesion. That's probably one of the most important things that you can do outside of just having a robot show up. Because the beauty is that there are teams all across the region. And so there is likely a team somewhere near you almost always, not every time, but almost always, that you can get connected with who can ultimately help your team in order to get you to where you need to be as well. All right, week 2. So suggested week 2, prototyping and design, multiple designs for things that are going to engage with the elements of the game. So manipulators, or mechanisms, so things that grab, things that launch, things that shoot, an arm. All of this will be dependent on the game, and it will also be dependent on what you're using for the purposes of creating your robot. So if you are using a KitBot, there will be elements of manipulation as part of that. Your drivetrain or your chassis is also something you need to determine. Do you guys, Elise and Mark, can you talk a little bit about the drivetrain? Like, I know there's like Swerve and there's other stuff, and some things are really good and other things are like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So last year the KitBot came with, it did not come with Swerve drive, and there's a lot of robots, a lot of teams that have been doing this a while are running Swerve drive. We went with Mecanum, and so that's like I don't know, moves better, but not swervy. And I mean, part of it is that it depends on the game. I think it would be exciting if FIRST put out a game where Swerve drive wasn't the way to win it, but I'm not in charge of that. It depends, and there's just like the evolution of what's working, and it, yeah. But Swerve drive is definitely what you'll see most successful advanced teams using, and I'm sure Mark can speak to that better.
So before COVID, we were running what was called West Coast Drive, which is kind of an offshoot of your tank drive. My kids call it tank drive. I'm like, well, it's not exactly that, and we were pretty successful with that. Even the year was at 22, we were still running that. So we didn't start Swerve until 2023 in terms of that. So I would say stick with, as a rookie team, stick with what's in that KitBot as a starting point. And then once you get to competition, you'll see some other options. Just have a really, really good robot that can, and a driver that can operate. I know a team that did really, really well, basically from a KitBot in 2019 in the Richmond area. And they went all the way to district championship finals with their robot and got to go to Detroit. So it's getting enough time, getting it built, getting it practiced, and working their way through that. So
awesome.
And then I'll post one little thing in there. If you're going to work on building field elements, try to get a parent to do it. Try to get them involved. That's been my saving grace in terms of being able to find somebody in the community that can come in to do that for me versus me having to take time away from managing the team to do it. So if you've got some parents that have any kind of working skills and that kind of stuff, and then there's lots of resources out there to kind of manipulate what FIRST sends, which is not always the best construction guidelines for it. So
that's a really good point, particularly if you're coming from one of the other programs. So if you're coming from FLL, you get everything you need in a box at your house, right? You get the mat, you get the little missions and the Legos, and you build stuff. And you might have to buy a table or build a table for that mat to go on, but ultimately you could even put it on the floor and move forward. In FTC, it's much the same. If you've got a standard classroom, you can fit an FTC field in that classroom. And in the competition manual, they give you DIY how to build a field so that you can just build it yourself. It's a 12 by 12 foot field. In FRC, unless you've got a machine shop area, like an area where a half a field can live, you might not have a space where you can put your robot on a space that is like a competition field. Now, if you do have the space to do that, you have the ability to utilize a DIY method of creating the field element your robot is going to engage with on a real field at a competition. But again, the other thing is working with other teams that are near you to potentially use something that they already have. So teams in Southwest Virginia, it will often utilize 401 space because they have a space for a DIY field. It lives there 100% of the time, and they just update the field elements when the new game comes out. And they do have parents who build those things. And so there's different ways to go about it. And there are teams out there. I do think this is important too. There are teams who do not have access and do not have a DIY field, and they build a robot and they show up to competition and they use a practice field at that competition, and that's the first time they engage with the field. Yep. And that's okay too. So all of those work.
Yep.
One of the things that I remember sort of, I don't know if it caught us by surprise, but a thing that was a big deal last year when we were trying to practice is carpet. And because really you can build all the field elements, but if you don't have a carpet, then why? And so we do not have an indoor practice space. We did buy a carpet that's similar to the carpet. You can find that resource somewhere. There's a link to like which carpet you can buy. And so we bought this like, you know, much smaller, like maybe a quarter field. It doesn't really matter. You just have to be able to drive the robot, you know, a little bit, and then put a couple of field elements at the edge of it. But we would just roll it outside in a flat spot, roll it back up after we were done practicing, you know, use those field elements. We also definitely didn't have the field elements built that early in the season, because like you're building a robot who, you know, if parents can build them, I think that's a great idea. I made that.
Yeah. We've never had them done that soon.
Yeah. But carpet was a big deal. And so find that resource, buy a little scrap of carpet, and then you'll have it.
Yeah.
Week 3. So again, these are guides. So you can start sooner, start later, adjust. But this would be building those major subsystems. So cutting, assembling, and testing the drivetrain, working through prototypes and mechanisms, working on the wiring and the programming. I would argue you can program at like right from the get-go, because there's I don't remember what it's called.
It's a simulator that you can actually run it in. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the simulator you can run it in, and then that way you've got the kids coding what the actions of the robot are going to be, and they're testing it in the simulator. And then once the robot is in its, you know, first iteration, they can then apply that code and use it real time in their field or on the floor or wherever they're doing it. And then the wiring, obviously, because it's got to have power. So. Yeah.
I would also say at this point, typically there's a simulation that has been rolled out for somebody to practice driving as well. And so your drivers can practice on their own. I think last year it was called MoSim, but that's something out there that's been beneficial for people that, you know, getting a chance for the field and how to control and that kind of stuff. And it's a good starting point for them as well.
Something else that we did at this point, when you don't have a robot yet, electrical doesn't really have that much to do because there's not a robot yet, is we did with what we call like Woodbot, where you mount all the parts to a piece of plywood so that the programmers can make a motor spin and make sure it spins the right way. And you can start like real world testing your programming, but not on a robot. And so, and electrical is doing the wiring, but like just to a piece of plywood where you have all the components. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Bonnie, can you take that one?
So week 4 is where you are going to want to start putting all of your manipulators onto your drivetrain, onto that chassis that you just built. You want to make sure that you have code. As long as you have the robot completely built. Keep in mind this varies by team and how fast you can get your robots built. But you would ideally want to be wiring your robot, making sure that everything works. And you could start some autonomous testing. If you don't know what autonomous means, that means the robot does the driving and moving by itself. You program it to do that. You push play and hope that it does what you have told it to do. Keep in mind, like, even though you are starting to hopefully get a robot that is put together, you may still have other prototypes. Maybe you put it all together and one part's not working, so you need to replace that. But you do want to try to start getting your robot together by the end of this week so that you have a week or two to actually practice the driving and working on getting the rest of those systems completely functioning.
And there is a state of the world where in week 4 you are still back doing week 2.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Every year.
Yeah. I mean, even the most veteran teams aren't like, well, it's week 4.
Why are we not done? Why don't we where is it? Yeah, we still have ambitions to have by the end of week 4. Now, we don't count kickoff as week 1. We count that as week 0. So we actually try to aim for about week 4 or 5, but we still struggle with that. So
yeah. Yeah, this is all like an ideal world.
Yeah.
An ideal situation.
And then hopefully no snow issues.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
We started on snow.
So that takes us into week 5, which if you have a robot built, you can start driving it. That driving practice is really critical. And it's really important that your students or whoever is driving your robot does get some practice doing that. Obviously, if you don't have a robot built during week 5, you would need to push this to week 6. But you do want to have driver practice before the competition season starts. This is also a time where you can refine those mechanisms. If you have, one part that's not working, you can redesign it, fix it, change it. You can make it simpler if it's too complex. You want to start getting those autonomous routines completed because you want, hopefully by the end of that week 5, a robot that can score some points. So,
and by score, it's really just thinking about what can your robot do consistently. So what is a thing we can be really good at and do consistently when we get on that field? That is a really important element of this. I think a lot of times kids get very excited about all the possible ways that they can score points with their robot, and they lose sight of the importance of being able to do something consistently. And that also, for when you go to competition, makes you a really good alliance partner, because when you do go on the playing field and do your robot game, you are in alliances of 3 teams versus 3 teams. And so if you are very predictable and consistent in 1 or 2 actions, that actually makes you a very good partner for another robot team that is really good at different actions. Yep. And to highlight what Elise said, that if you do not have autonomous, that's okay. Autonomous is 15 seconds. Like, it's all right. Focus on the other period of time where your kids have control of the movement of the robot.
And I would say those of you that struggle with the autonomous, once you get to your first competition, there are probably some veteran teams that might have some extra programmers there that might be able to pitch in. That's one of those things. I know our team always has a plethora of kids at an event and always willing to kind of give some assistance on there. So on strategy scripts is basically understanding what your robot can do, right? To answer Becky's question.
Yeah.
So that because our drive coach will meet with the other teams before you go on the field, and you'll talk about a strategy for your qualification match. And so whatever your robot can do, you'll be able to talk it up and say, this is what we can do. And then that works into everybody else's strategy to score the most points as an alliance.
Yeah, we did have auto by the end of that first competition, thanks to some help from our friends.
And you will find, for those of you who are brand new to FIRST, and if you weren't able to meet up with us in the first coach chat session, one of the principles of FIRST, sort of the ethos that FIRST is built on, is this idea of collaboration, cooperation, that we're not winning, and we're not winning in a way where it's like dog eat dog battle bots, like I win, you lose, and I'm out to destroy. That is not that's not the foundation or the principles by which FIRST operates. We really are focused on the teams and the kids being the very best they can be, because when we're all reaching our best potential, we're all doing better. And so it's called gracious professionalism and cooper-tition. If you haven't heard those words, you're going to hear them constantly. They're going to be in the manuals. There's videos on YouTube about it. But those are sort of those principles. And so to Elise's point, if you show up and you're like, man, I really wish we had autonomous, but we don't. Sure would be nice if someone could help us. I promise you, there'll be like 5 veteran teams and they'll be like, oh, we'll help you. And they will. Yep. And they'll totally help you, because it benefits everybody, not just your team.
You never know who you get paired up with in qualifications too. So it actually benefits a lot of teams by being able to teach that and share their understanding with it. So yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Anything else before I go to week 6? Okay. So, week 6, this is kind of the end, and hopefully at this point you actually do have a robot that will do something. If you have a robot, you've been practicing with it, you want to kind of stress test it, you want to see if parts are going to break easily. If they are going to break easily, think about how long it's going to take to repair them. You want to have spare parts and backups to motors and batteries and wires and all of those different mechanisms that you build to play the game. You should run some practice matches if you can. So if you have a place that you can drive your robot around, you would want to do that. Or maybe you could pair up with somebody, another team, and practice on their field or half a field if that is available. You want to finalize what your pit is going to be. You want your award submissions and presentations if you are planning on that. And so you basically want to just get ready for competition at this point.
And when we get closer to competition, our coach chat will focus entirely on what to do to be competition ready. So we talk about packing lists and pits and, thinking about safety for your kids, and don't let them to forget drinking water and eating food, because they do sort of forget that. Like all that kind of stuff is covered in a different coach chat. So just so everybody knows. Anything else, Mark and Elise, you want to add to?
Yeah. So one of the things that we just recently did better on is stress testing. So pick up your robot and drop it from about 6 inches off the floor to see if any wiring comes, loose or part falls off. That way, you've got to fix that. That's something that we did not do a good job for years. And then the last several, it's been that drop test, and that seems to have helped identify areas of weakness.
Good point. Because for those of you who've not been to a competition before, I would recommend that you go to the FIRST Chesapeake YouTube and watch a few matches, share it with your students as well, because the robots are fast and they do collide, and it is significant when they do. And so having a secure robot, a structurally sound robot, is very important, because at that first competition, the collisions that occur, we don't encourage colliding, but it just is part of it. It happens. So, because is
there going to be any week zeros this year? Do you know?
So far, no.
Okay. Because that would be the other recommendation. If you're not seeing, get out and practice. getting your robot on the field ready to go is always a good thing. But
and Mark, could you elaborate on week 0? What do you mean? What do you say that?
So week 0 is the week before competition season starts. The local places will have a part of the field or a whole field set up for people to go out and put their robot and actually run it with the field elements. And I know they used to do it pretty much every year, and I know that's been sporadic since in the last few. So just for availability and release, getting stuff to where it needs to go for it. So,
and one of the reasons we don't do week 0 events now is because FIRST has become very strict about us utilizing the systems that they use in order to run those week 0s, where you can get like a real feel for what it is to be on a field, because the time crunch is such that they are still field testing the field. So they have become rather strict about that.
It's okay. We've hardly ever made it to a week 0 because we're never ready. So
we're rolling amongst friends.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So these are the starter bot options that we were talking about at the top of the hour.
Okay.
So in terms of robot kits, this is actually relatively new. For a long time, FRC didn't have a kit. It was like, these are the legal parts. This is some vendors. Go make a robot. And so this is relatively new. I want to say we're maybe 3 years in the making. And so it's very exciting because it allows new coaches to be able to have sort of a foundation robot that will get out on the field and be able to function and score, and give a new team a chance to compete. And so these are just some of the starter bot options. If you registered and you opted for, was it the gray tote? The black tote? The gray tote?
Black.
What are the totes? Help me out. I don't
Black tote, right? The
black tote. If you're a new team and you did the full complement of materials, which you would have, you are going to get this material, the KitBot information.
Because you want all the control systems and everything.
You want all that stuff, and you'll get it. And then on launch day, on January 10th, kickoff day, that's when all of these libraries and things will update so that the directions for assembling and putting together these robots will be available. These are also vendors that you are welcome to utilize for a variety of parts. Rev is probably one of the most commonly used ones just because they have a strong partnership with FIRST. Andy Mark is another, and then Plumber Industries happens to be in our district, and so there's even discounts and stuff available to our teams for Plumber. So I always like to highlight them. But these are all legal and approved vendors that you can utilize in order to buy parts, as well as anything that's not restricted in the game manual from like local hardware stores and stuff like that. So it is not uncommon in shops to have like a whole back area over the course of time. You're not going to have this in year one, but you know, keeping different types of things that you come to, wood, aluminum, wire, right? Like just random things, because ultimately you might be able to use that to assemble something on your robot. And so you might have a space like that one day. Bonnie, take this one.
So we also have a slide in here where we have places that you can find additional resources. You can use our resources, First Chesapeake's resources, which would be our Slack channel. We do a monthly newsletter called the FRC Link, which also is a blog post on our website. So we provide information in there and updates monthly. And then as competition gets closer, we decided weekly updates. Is that what we decided to do?
Yeah.
So we'll send out weekly updates. So if you aren't signed up for our newsletter, you want to definitely get signed up. You can do that on our website. We have a FRC resource hub on our website where we've compiled all kinds of information that is helpful. We link out to the what will eventually be the game and season materials that are in FIRST and some other resources. And then FIRST also has a lot of FRC resources, the kit of parts, the game and season, tutorials. So we linked all of those so that you have a nice slide to be able to just click on those and navigate through them and gain more information.
All right. So what questions do you have that we might be able to help you with, or Mark might be able to help you with? All right. Well, if you don't have questions right now, Shalane has to.
So how do you all move or transfer your robots to competitions?
Mark, I'm gonna let you speak to that one.
Yeah, so since I've been on the team, we pretty much have rented a U-Haul van, and we were able to fit our whole pit and everything in there. When I first started, we had a parent that was willing to drive. We had 1 year where we had an alumni parent that donated use of a box truck and hauled it everywhere. Every other year, it has been me. So I've been the one driving the equipment van. I know there's a couple other teams that use trailers out there. I've seen some teams haul it in a bunch of multiple vehicles and minivans and trucks. So just kind of figure out what your resources are on there with that and do it. But yeah, we've got that. And just so happens we do have a one of our new sponsors is actually covering the cost of our rental vans now this year. So it's been about a 4-year process to get that in place. So that's actually going to reduce our overall overhead in terms of what's going on with that. So that might be another area to reach out to local, say, hey, can you cover the cost of our rental U-Haul for the weekend? And I know for us, with most of ours, other than going to long distance, like to Blacksburg, most of the time it's been $300 to $400 for a weekend for us to do that, to rent that. So that's where it is. Blacksburg was a little bit more because it's more miles. And we are one of the teams that is not doing a local event either. So even though there is one we're doing, we wanted to do week 1, but that got nabbed pretty quick. So we are in the last 2 weekends. So we're going both ends, Southeast as well as Southwest Virginia. So we'll part of that. So that's
coming to my area.
Yeah. Oh, we enjoy coming that way. Other than it's a long drive, and this year parents opted to go Friday night. So we're going to stay Friday night as opposed to having the kids show up to school and depart school at 4 a.m. So
better.
Yeah, even though I go Friday night, but that's but yeah, that's what it is. And I know, let's see, what was it? Mav Mechanics, Freeman, they did depended upon the week, but a lot of times they were putting everything in people's personal vehicles and hauling stuff to their events. They weren't hauling. Yeah. So it just kind of depends upon what it is. If you find a trailer, make sure you've got somebody that knows how to drive and haul a trailer. I know we've run into a few teams that they have struggled with that. I've had a parent say, "Hey, I'll loan you a trailer." I says, "I don't have a vehicle to tow it. I drive a Honda Civic, so that it's a little hard to drive one of those." So,
well, and security of the trailer is another.
Making sure you've got a place to. Now, obviously, if we were just to rent one for the weekend, yeah, that works. But yeah, the long-term security is storage and that kind of stuff is a challenge. Yeah. Yeah, if anybody is in the Richmond area for kickoff and wants some kickoff ideas, let me know. Reach out to me. I know we do our own full day event where we do some team building and some brainstorming in the afternoon and that kind of stuff. And we're in downtown Richmond, so.
And I would also say, be on the lookout, everyone, because in the next FRC newsletter, there's going to be information about an initiative that Chesapeake is doing called Chesapeake Core. And basically, it's a way for us to connect experienced coaches and mentors with those mentors who want to learn a new skill. So you don't even have to be new. You just want to learn a skill that you don't possess yet. Or you're new and you just need help in general. And there will be a form for you to fill out if you're looking for help, and a form for you to fill out if you're looking to lend a hand. And then Chesapeake is going to be coordinating based on the needs of those two populations and where you're located, so that you can be connected with someone near you. Can't guarantee it's going to be like in your backyard, but near enough to you that you would have someone you can reach out to get some help.
And now in the age of post-COVID Zoom, there's always people that can help even by a distance as well. So
yeah. And if you're not in Slack, you need to be. So make sure that you go to our website and you can join Slack right from our website. It is a wealth of information. And if you drop a note in there with a question, you will get a response. And so we highly encourage you to use Slack as a form of communication with the community. Because at the end of the day, as I said at the very top, we as an organization, First Chesapeake, so Matt, Bonnie, and Shelly, we are certainly a resource for you, and we're here to assist. But the people who have the expertise in the field in running teams and the ins and outs and the logistics and all those things that coaches are thinking about, those are the people you want to be the most connected with. And we can serve as a conduit to get you there. But definitely get involved with the community, get connected, because there's a wealth of information and resource out there.